And now, here is Coretta McDonald, Member of Parliament and host of Advancing the Cause.
First of all, I want to say happy 50th birthday to a teacher by the name of Miss June Fraser, way out there on the quarantine. I think she's at Alness, way out there at Alness on the quarantine. June, happy birthday to you. And I trust that this 50th chapter is going to bring you lots and lots and lots of success. You know what I'm talking about. Do enjoy. I am waiting to get there too. I know all of you girls showing off on me because so many of you who we used to be together have already celebrated their 50th birthday, and some of you are still doing that. But I'm going to get there, don't worry. So happy birthday again to you, Miss June Fraser. Well, you know, tonight while we want to wish all of those persons who are celebrating birthdays happy birthday, we also want to extend the condolences to those who would have lost loved ones during this period, during that week that has passed. And so we've lost 4 teachers within maybe 5 days, or not even 5 days, 4 teachers. And so to those families, we want to extend to you our heartfelt condolences. We trust that God is going to bless you and comfort you at this time. And like everything else, you know, some of the death that we have seen or that we have experienced among the teaching fraternity, one really, really stood out. And that is the death of Miss Omega. She was murdered. She was found in her home, partly decomposed, and nobody knows where her husband is at this time. You know, again, the heart of man is wicked. And I'm hoping that the authorities will do what they have to do so that the family could have closure to this whole, what they would want to experience, what they would want to refer to. I would think that it's just a dream, but no, it's a reality. And then we had, just before that, we had the 3 children, the 2 brothers and the sister, ages, I think it's 10, 7 and 1 year old, or 7, 8 and 1 year old, who were burnt to death. I don't know how that feels, but I know how it feels to lose a loved one. And I can understand, you know, how that mother is feeling at this time. To her, we want to send our condolences, and to our other family members. And I want to say to all of us, let's reach out in whatever way we can to help these people. They need our support at this time. And so on we go with Advancing the Cause this evening. You know, we have this evening, our program says the 2 B's, Burnham and Botheration. The 2 B's. So call up a friend, tell them Advancing the Cause is on, and we want them to check in so that we can all be a part of this interesting discourse that we are going to be having this evening. But before I do that, let me quickly do some of our highlights for this evening. Some of the highlights that we're going to share this evening. One, we had a pregnant teen who lost her life at, she died at the GPHC after suffering from asthma. A pregnant teen, 16 years old, died, and her relatives are claiming negligence. I don't know. I don't know what has happened there. And then we continue with all of these. The crime rate continues. We're having so many murders, so many assaults, So many stabbings taking place in the country within just over 2 weeks. So many persons would have been murdered. What is really happening here? We have got to do something. And you know what? I was thinking earlier today that our people, we have got to start seeking the Lord. You know, the Bible says if we seek Him, He is going to hear us, and He is going to forgive us, and He's going to heal our land. So that's what I would want to ask us to do this evening and tomorrow and the next day and every other day. So let's join in prayers for the healing of this land. Too many things are happening. Domestic violence seems to be going, and nobody seems to be able to have any control on that. And we cannot allow for our people to be losing their lives like that. And as I speak to you, it just dawned on me that we have been rated number 8 in the world, highest crime for the crime rates. Come on, Robeson Ben, your name calling here. Do something about it. Do something about it. And while I'm talking about Robeson Ben, I would want to refer to the police officers who we have noticed that this medicine is spreading so very quickly, where we're seeing citizens thinking that it's a right to disrespect and to assault police officers. And it moved from one to another to another. So we had 3 over the span of maybe 2 weeks, 3 persons, 3 police officers being assaulted by citizens across this country. And we have got to do something about it. I hear the commissioner, the person who is performing the duties as commissioner of police, I hear him talk about building relationships and building relationships. But you know what? We can't build relationships when we are the ones who are encouraging a couple of things to happen. We are the ones encouraging a couple of things to happen. And so civilians feel that it's okay for them to assault police officers. But let me tell you, it's not okay. And we can only build relationships by allowing persons to feel when they make wrong choices. I'm not sure when that is going to start, but as citizens, I want to ask that we respect our servicemen and women, that we respect them. And so those are some of the highlights that I'm going to give you for this week. Of course, I spoke about the 3 children who died in the fire and the teacher whose body was found in her home half decomposed. And then we had this young man who was shot dead in Sophia, an employee from the Ministry of Health. And then we had the issue of the cocaine being found on the wharf. Well, I tell you, it's quite a lot that we have to talk about this evening. And so right on, I'm going to bring our guest into studio. He's no stranger to any of us here, none of us. This name is well known. This person is well known to many other persons. But when I bring him on, you're going to see who our guest is. And so, operator, could you bring our guest right in? Oh, yes, here he is. Mr. Paul Williams. Good evening to you, and welcome to Advancing the Cause. It's always a pleasure to chat with you because I know I personally learn a lot when I talk with you. And I know for sure that our viewers here, they are going to learn quite a lot from this conversation that we're going to be having. Now, our talk for this evening says Burnham, the 2 B's, Burnham and moderation. That's our talk for this evening. But we know, Mr. Slowe, because you give your entire life to the security system in this country, we want to start off our conversation on this whole moderation concert that we would have had. And coming from the standpoint of a police officer, because once a police, always a police. Your thoughts on this whole moderation concert?
Well, good evening, MP McDonald. Good evening to your viewers. Good evening to your listeners. The name says it all. It was really moderation indeed. I mean, I have been saying I don't know how they came up with that name, but I guess it was an apt name for what actually transpired. I I've been speaking on this issue since Saturday because it troubled me a lot. to see what transpired at this show, the negative image it would have created, both locally and abroad. And it is clear that what transpired there was a total breakdown in security arrangements which are put in place or which should be put in place for an event of that nature. You know, I made the point that I used to be the police commander of Police A Division, which includes Georgetown, where the show was held. This was a show held Friday night at the National Park. And following similar incidents in the past, in the distant past, security protocols were put in place. And after those protocols were created and put in place, those incidents disappeared. At that time, it was gunshots and the use of chemical agents, more specifically mace. These things were done to create panic, and during the ensuing panic, persons were robbed, persons were injured. We put systems in place, and things were under control. So it was very disappointing and surprising to see after all these years the type of retrogression that there was. Look, when I looked at on social media on Wednesday last, I saw this artist arriving at the Cherry Jagan International Airport, and I did not know who the artist was. So I made some inquiries, and I was told who the artist was, King, and that immediately I was advised that once he is performing, there's likely to be chaos because a particular song actually calls on people to empty their Glock or some words to that effect. Now, Glock is a firearm, a popular firearm, and if an artist is calling for people to rinse, I think is the word is rinse your Glock, it was clear that lawlessness was going to be promoted. And if I, as an ordinary civilian, was able to get that type of information, what was the security forces, what wing? How did they know that this was likely to happen? And to see what transpired there, people, as the saying goes, people licking shot in the air, gunshots in the air, bottles being thrown. That too is so surprising and disturbing because activities of this nature, and this is not only in Guyana, it's one of the accepted standards is that you do not allow glass bottles in events like that. Because glass bottles, apart from the fact that they were thrown Friday night, they're likely to fall, they're likely to break, and then they become trip hazard, they become dangerous to patrons in the show. And you know, women wear their fancy sandals. If you have broken bottles there, you can guess that it's dangerous. So to see what transpired there, and immediately following that on Friday, the man who occupies the seat of the commissioner already called a meeting with the promoter and the senior officers. I asked the question whether a similar meeting was held prior to the activity to make sure that all the security arrangements were in place. It appears that that was not done. So it was a total breakdown. I am hopeful that having regards to what happened and the backlash, because they raised a backlash on the whole thing, that they will review the security protocols, and the protocol that I refer to, which was created back in 2004, it should be somewhere there. All they have to do, look at it and make sure it is implemented. I made the point earlier that one of the things that was mandated in the protocol is that the promoters had to give adequate notice and get permission to hold such a show, not turn up a few days or a week or so. And it was said that before you advertise the show, you have to make sure that you got the necessary permission. A show like that requires the permission from the magistrate in the district. It requires the permission of the fire service, the chief fire officer. It requires the permission of the Guyana Revenue Authority. It also requires the permission of the police. And in most cases, the police is perhaps the last to give permission because you have to make sure that the GRA arrangement, when you come to the police commander, that is what he's going to ask you. Let me see the relevant documents from GRA, from the fire service, and from the magistrate of the district. I don't know if those things are still happening, but I would hope that they look into it and make sure the proper arrangements are in place for that type of show. Because, as I've said, Guyana is now portrayed because of the show in a negative light. And you know, in the age of social media, these things go immediately all over the world. You go to any place on social media, you're seeing what you're seeing is this big gunshot in the show, people running helter skelter, people being robbed at the show. Even and I made the point too that it is in the interest of the promoters to make sure that activities like this, um, these activities are held in an orderly manner, because it will perhaps encourage more persons to attend. But something is definitely wrong when in the year 2022 you can have an activity like that at the national park, and the mayhem that ensued was allowed to take place.
But Mrs. Slowe, I know you said a mouthful, but I was coming to the issue of um, this whole show and the artists that we usually bring here to Guyana. Now, I'm sure, like everything else, we want to cater for every grouping of our people. So we want to cater for our young people that age, that 17 to maybe 25 or 30 age range. And then we have from that 30 to maybe about 45 and so on. And then we can go over that. But even while we want to cater for the different age groups, I think it is very critical and it's important that we ought to be able to screen these artists who we are bringing. And I just heard you talking about you doing your own bits of investigation and getting your little background knowledge, your background information on this guy, King, or whatever is his name. Now, I am wondering whether our promoters here, they just decide, well, okay, tomorrow morning I wake up, I want to bring this artist or I want to bring that artist, and nobody is doing any kind of background work. Now, put aside the promoters. What about our security force? We have our Guyana Police Force. We have the Guyana Defense Force. You mentioned the Guyana Fire Service. You mentioned the magistrate who's servicing the district. And we also have a security, an advisor on security. Now, don't we all, isn't there a link in between all of these persons or these groupings when there is going to be shows of this nature?
Well, first of all, let me say this. From my experience, when the promoter decides to bring an artist, the promoter knows exactly who is bringing. He knows exactly the repertoire of the artist. He knows exactly, he or she, the promoter, they know exactly what type of crowd, what type of behavior accompanies particular artists. So they know that. They know that there's absolutely no doubt that when they sit to decide they're going to bring a particular person, they know the type of songs the particular person is going to sing. They know if the person is likely to promote certain type of behavior. They know that. They know that, but they go ahead because these things are not properly vetted. These artists are not properly vetted by people responsible for security. And this morning on one of the shows, a gentleman said, I made the point that when I was the commander of police division, there was a particular show, and the group that was coming there to sing was known to promote and to celebrate the use of marijuana. And they were told that, look, marijuana is unlawful in Guyana, and we're not going to encourage you to come to promote and to encourage people to break the law by smoking marijuana. The gentleman's view this morning was that, well, wasn't the correct thing, that we were making law. He called my name, said we were making law, and that was Parliament to be. I said on my program this morning, that is not so. And I read a report from the United States. We talk about United States being the land of the free. Buju Banton in 2009 had this song, Boom Bye Bye, where
Yes.
it was deemed to be homophobic. And he was prevented from the shows in the United States. Several venues canceled his performance because of demonstration and protest by the group, and he wasn't allowed to perform. And I read an article this morning as well, where something similar happened in Manchester, in the United Kingdom, some years
Yes.
ago with Buju and Beanie Man, because the
Yes.
people were saying they know that the type of performance is likely to create a danger to public safety. And that is what we had on Friday night, a danger to public safety. And on those grounds, the shows were not allowed to take place. So it is not a case of people saying, well, yeah, you're restricting people's choice and you're restricting movement. We have national security considerations. And if the security apparatus, if the people in the security sector feel that if they do the work, then they will know that these shows, if particular shows, are likely to cause public safety concerns. And they need to not to wait until these things go there. I believe they should be proactive and say to the artists, you have to look sorry, based on the performance, based on the track persons, not going to be allowed to bring those persons in. They are not going to be allowed to bring them in. But let me say this: the thing is, the promoters, and this is no secret, the promoters are known to have connections. The promoters to this particular show, and therefore, it is my belief that the people responsible for security might have been timid. But even if they knew, or even if they suspect that you're going to have the chaos that ensued, they might have been reluctant. They might have been afraid, because as we know, again, this is no secret, there is heavy political interference in the management of the Guyana Police Force. And I dare say, if any commander, any police officer had said, well, look, sorry, this show cannot take place for whatever reason, politicians may have well intervened and instructed them to allow the show. But that couldn't happen when we were there, and when I was a police commander in the division. No way that would have been allowed. I made a point after the initial lawlessness in 2004, and after the protocol was implemented, that would not have happened. We have had cases where we refused permission for certain artists based on the same intelligent assessment that they were likely to create public safety issues. So it's a case where people have to do what they are paid to do. They have to sit there. They have to make the necessary analysis. Don't wait until something happens. And I am sure too what occurs now is that the promoters take things for granted. So they're bringing in artists. I understand that right now people are even advertising for shows in down the road in July and all of that. I am certain that they have not acquired the necessary permissions before to order from GRA, fire, and the magistrate and the police, but they go ahead. So in other words, the police are taken for granted, and it's going to be a fait accompli. They just say, well, the show to go on, and that's it. That's the reality in the situation that we are in now.
You know, Mr. Slowe, it's so disgusting, because the thing is, in 2022, we expect to be moving 5 and 6 leaps up when it comes especially to the security of our people. Now, the mere fact that we have a show called Botheration, it means we're in for trouble. As a matter of fact, I was having some conversations with some young people, and they said, well, that was supposed to happen. They say, you know, I don't know who this guy is. I've never heard about this guy, because of course that's not my kind of music. That's not my kind of artist. But when talking to these young people, they said, I understand you're old, but listen to me. That man came with his crew, and that man crew is called the Mali crew, I think, something to that effect. And once you're talking that, you're talking problems. They further said to me that the song Protocol, that was expected,
Yep.
as long as he's coming here, the song that he has there that says Protocol, like everything else talks about the gun and firing off these shots and what, a 100 shots, something. So he said, they said to me, Patrons were warned. They were warned. Don't come with your phones. Don't come with your bags. Don't come with this. Don't come with your chains and what, because it's Botheration Show. Now, I don't know if our promoters use these names to create sensation, to make them sexy. But I would want to say on this forum that I'm hoping that we don't ever have this happening here again, and that our police officers should do what they are being paid to do: protect and serve. You're not there to serve the political masters. You are there to serve the people of this country. And it's so disgusting that we're always reactive. We're always reactive. I remember there was this artiste, Patra, who was banned from coming to Guyana.
Correct.
And I'm saying, why is it that we are allowing certain groupings to be able to bring all kinds of people in here? It seems as if Guyana has become now a lawless nation. So we do whatever. And whatever happens, then we create some forum, and we do all kinds of photo shoot to show, oh, we're having meetings. Meetings to say what? When persons would have been injured, when persons would have lost their belongings, you having a meeting to say what now? Are you going to reimburse them? The thing is, if lives were lost on that night, what would we have been saying? Oh, it's a mistake and you're sorry? Come on, promoters, you got to do better than what you're doing. And I would want to say on this show, on this program, that artists like Skim, whatever is his name, they should be banned from coming to Guyana. They should not be allowed to grace these shores again. Because you know what? He can't go to the US and do that and perform like that. He can't go to Canada. He can't go to the UK. I'm sure he cannot do those kinds of things in his own native land, Jamaica. Because I heard Buju Banton coming out and blasting him. And I'm saying, what happened to we? Goat bite we, that people coming here to do all sorts of things and we allowing it? This is really, really disgusting. And you know what I noticed? I noticed that the Ministry of Youth, Sports and Culture, they sponsored, if not full sponsored, 3/4 sponsored this show. And I heard the Minister of Youth, Sports and Culture talking the other day about I'm trying to get the thing.
Role models.
Yes, role models. I'm so well, I shouldn't say that I'm disappointed in Charles Ramson, because Charles Ramson doesn't know better. He doesn't know better, because if you hear him behave in the National Assembly, you would want to know if that's the same Minister of Sports, Youth, Sports and Culture who go out there to play Peter and Paul. You sponsoring a show like that without even finding out the background of this guy, it means that you too are part of what transpired at the Botheration Show. And Mr. Slowe, I want to say that we cannot continue, we cannot overemphasize our commendations for you and so many other police officers who served with distinction in the Guyana Police Force. Because shows like these would never come off under your watch and under the watch of other police officers. And we can understand why the political forces are supporting some of the people that they're supporting in the police force, because these are the kinds of things that you allow to happen. But a little more than this, Mr. Slowe, we would have had, I noticed all our COVID protocols are out the door, every single one of them. So we're having all these massive shows with huge crowds and so on. Nobody checking anything, nobody doing this. But I noticed we had another show, I think it was on Saturday night. And then the police.
Stink and dirty. You see, you talk about Botheration on Saturday night, you got stink and dirty.
I mean, I'm wondering whether people had good when they're given the names to these things. I mean, if we check our history, we would recognize that when whatever name you give, is like they tell you, if you give your child a particular name, expect ABC. If you keep saying negative things to your children, you expect that those kinds of playouts coming from them. And people are not understanding these things. Again, we understand that you want to make your shows sexy. with the names that you give. But come on, let's be wise. Let's be a group of people who are wise, and we don't put names to shows that would cause injury to people. But like everything else, I noticed the other show, Stink and Dirty Show, we had a whole barrage of scissors. I was wondering whether it was sewing classes that we were going to have at that show. And then we saw some ice picks and some screwdrivers and some knives and so on. And we even saw a gun there. Your take on this? Do we need to do more in terms of security and securing our people when they go to these kinds of venues? What are some of the things we need to do?
Certainly. Well, let me say, in naming these shows, it is my considered view that these names are not accidental. These names are selected carefully so that it can attract a certain type of people, a certain type of behavior. Now, when you're going to name the show, Stink and Dirty, it cannot be an accident. It cannot be an accident. So when the behavior lives up to the name of the show, we the older folks perhaps are surprised, but the people who are attracted, the people who promote this type of thing, that is what they want to promote. And when we talk about Saturday night, the scissors, the many scissors that were there, some people were a bit skeptical. They say, well, no way you can have all that scissors in the show Saturday night. Maybe the police add those things in the storeroom someplace, and then they bring them there. But you see, those people who are saying that are people who are naive. They don't know what is going on. But when you see that many scissors, it tells you that marijuana was in full season there, because the scissors is used by the pushers to cut up the marijuana. The users use the scissors too, that the smoker, to cut it into fine strips before it can be rolled. Because when you get the marijuana, you buy the marijuana in the show, it is difficult to roll it in the manner and fashion that you got it. So you have to have these scissors to make sure you can chip it up fine, and then you roll. And you know, all of these things, you know, I am at a certain age where I somehow am forced to interact with certain people who are much younger, because I want to keep in the know. So I would ask them about these things. And they, as the saying goes, they are the ones who shine me. They are the ones who will say, big man, this thing is for so. Big man, this thing. And most times when it is revealed to me at first, I am shocked. But then it thing makes sense. So I said earlier today that if you are a parent and you see your children or you see anyone with scissors, and you know he's not attending tailor classes, you know she's not attending classes to be a seamstress, you have to be concerned. It might very well be that they're using the scissors to cut marijuana. So these things tell a story. And the question is asked, if on Saturday night all of these scissors could have been found, what happened to Friday night? What happened to the other shows? It's suggesting that they were there too, but because of lack security arrangements, they weren't discovered. And when people goes to most of the people go to the shows, they are not first-time goers. They're people who frequent these shows. They go to the shows, so they know exactly what they have to take. Because when people see the scissors, they believe, say, I at first thought too, that maybe it is what we call offensive weapon. Somebody got a scissors to make sure, in case they're attacked, or they can protect themselves or defend themselves. But it's not so. It's a tool. It's not used as a weapon. It is used as a tool to deal with the marijuana. And again, I made the point about the protocol years ago. A show, well, we would not have had, I'm sure, but any similar show would have attracted the ranks from the narcotics branch, maybe even Kanu, and all of those people are there, because you know the type of people who are likely to be there. You know the drugs. Don't let me bury our head like the proverbial ostrich. Once you have those shows, drugs are going to be there. Cocaine, marijuana, and other stuff. The song protocol talks about Molly and all of those things. So those things are going to be there. And it's for the law enforcement, for the security services, to make sure that they have arrangements in place, proactive arrangements, so they can deal with those things. And if you want to be proactive, you have to start from the time the promoters come to you for permission to hold the show. That is the type of proactiveness you have to have. You have to be able to do your own investigation to find out the artist, what type of crowd the artist is going to pull. I mean, if you have, many years ago, I remember in the 90s, you had Maxi Priest coming to the National Park. At that time, that was the biggest show. I worked there, biggest show. And you know, with the Maxi Priest show, you know the type of crowd you're going to get. And therefore, arrangements are put in place based on the artist. Arrangements are put in place based on the artist because you would have done your own work and you know the crowd that is likely to be there. You know how this show is hyped up, and therefore, arrangements have to be put in place. You see, to put those arrangements in place require resources. The police who are there, that's extra duty payment in most cases. So if you have to have policemen, you do your homework again, you do your calculations, and then the promoter has to pay for the services of those policemen. But therein lies part of the problem. They don't want to pay.
They don't want to pay.
They will try to tell you, well, they're not going to attract that many persons. I remember attending a meeting some years ago at the Ministry of Culture, Youth and Sport with some of the very promoters. And they were crying out how they're not, well, as they would say, the show bust and they didn't make money and all that type of thing. I said, well, look, this thing is done as a business. And I can't see you not making money on this business and you remain in the business. So don't bring that to me.
Exactly
so. That to me. And because of that too, because of the promoters not wanting to pay these police, sometimes policemen are reluctant to go to work at these shows because you go and you work, then you have to wait a long time before you're paid, if you are paid at all. And therefore, we insisted that once the calculation was done, either the whole sum or a large portion thereof had to be paid upfront so that the ranks, because these are people, most times the policemen are there, they would have completed their shift.
Yes, and they have to work extra.
And they come, because of the meager salary, I suspect, they come for something extra. And to have them there for all those long hours, and then at the end of the day, the promoter crying out that he busts and all that type of thing. There were some promoters who were known for that. They were known to crying and don't want to pay for the services. And we used to tell them plain, you have to pay up front. As the people who know, the people who of my age who know to play rap. Rap is a card game that the people gamble with. And when they know I to come, we should tell them no I to come. You can't say I to come, you have to come up front.
Come up front.
You have to tell us I to come. The money had to be paid up front. Otherwise, other than that, there was not going to be an issue. So you have to insist on all of these things. I mean, I don't know whether the ranks were paid, but you talk about long hours, a show like that. Maybe as early as 4 or 5 o'clock in the afternoon, people are there on the ground, traffic and other ranks, right out there. So we have to insist that monies are paid so that the adequate number, because if you leave it to the promoters, you can tell you, look, I only want 10 policemen, right? Only want 10, because he recognizes that the more they have on the ground is more that they have to pay. So they're always reluctant to pay for the services of policemen. As I indicated, not only policemen from the division that the show was being kept. In this case, it was Georgetown. No one division will have all the resources to properly police a show like that. Because you're talking, as I said, you might very well have to have the people from the, in some cases, the narcotics branch, people from the K9 section, people from the mounted police. All of those people might have to be involved. And that is why I made the point that an activity like this, even though it is spearheaded by the division where the show is held, this is an activity that has to have input from force headquarters. So the man who sits in the chair of the commission, all of those people have to get involved, because the divisional commander would not be able to get resources. He can't command resources from another division. That is where the people from headquarters come. So all of these things, they have to look into. We are talking, you pick up the paper, you hear about promotion of tourism. CPL cricket is to come sometime in August. That is being promoted as an opportunity to attract tourists. Now,
Tourists, yeah.
tourists are not going to come to a country when they see this type of lawlessness. People want to come to be able to enjoy themselves. We don't have the sun and sunshine like people like Barbados and Antigua. So if we want to offer people tourism experience, one of the things we have to make sure that the place is safe. And I don't know how we attracting tourists when you have a stink and dirty and you have a botheration show and you have all of these things. You have issues, security issues, which force the U.S. Embassy to issue warnings. You have where your COVID protocol are really almost non-existent. So if you're talking about security, security is an holistic thing. Security is holistic, and therefore you have to look at it in that manner. Another one-off thing, you wait till things can come, and then and the culture is you sit on the Saturday, you call a meeting, you make a press release that you found a gun and a man is arrested, and you would note on Saturday, I think it was, a release was issued that one of the patrons, a businessman from Rhineville or somewhere, was arrested with a legal firearm. You haven't heard anything further. That is Saturday. You haven't heard anything further when this man passed through court. And that is the problem. People pay to the gallery, so you jump or you call a show, or you take out photograph, or you put it in the media. You get friendly media to hype it. You're doing something. We're doing something when? You have to be proactive. You have to keep. I want to know, for example, what happened to the man who is claimed they found with an illegal 9mm pistol and one wrong. I want to know, was this man charged? What is the position with that? The other thing, when we talk, and I'm talking, I know policing. You're talking about policing. So at the show Friday night, you had this lawlessness, people shooting in the air, people being robbed. I have not heard of any report in the media about people robbed. You see the footage, you can see people possibly being robbed. People said even the bar was robbed. Shots were fired in the air. Now, what efforts were made to make sure that evidence was collected? Almost none. If people are shooting guns in the air, clearly, and the gun that I saw that them put in there on the show, and what the man had, and they say a 9mm pistol, those things are semi-automatic weapons. So when they fire, you're going to have casings, empty casings, that is going to be somewhere on the ground. What efforts were made to recover those things as evidence to prosecute? Perhaps none, because the very next the Saturday night, there's a show there. So it means that it was cleared up and all whatever evidence was there. So that is the type of slackness, that's the type of unprofessional behavior we have by those persons who claim to be in charge of security. And I'm passionate about this because I'm Guyanese, and it creates a negative image of Guyana. It creates a negative image. People already, in some cases, believe Guyana is a backward place, and when these things happen, it tends to reinforce that backward negative image.
Mr. Slowe, as I listen to you, I'm remembering one time I think there was a Beanie Man show or something. I think you did make mention of it, and there was some sort of confusion, and we have not moved from that. As a matter of fact, you said that there was a protocol that was established, and all people need to do is to go back to that. But you know what I find happened to us is that we have a difficulty with people who stand for what is right. And anything that they leave, all we do is destroy it. We don't want to use what they would have left there. And we don't have anything in place. Now, coming out of the Baderation show, we found all of these scissors and what. It means, therefore, that we have got to up our system 4 times what we would have had before. And like you rightfully said, the promoters don't want to pay. They want to make monies, but they don't want to pay. And I'm hoping that the national advisor on national security is listening or he's watching this program, because I'm gonna have to promote, do a promotion on him, to say you better start paying back all those monies that you're receiving because you're not doing anything. If we have people in positions, then they must work. They must put systems in place. We're going to have, and it's amazing how we would have had an entire week of shows, one after the other after the other. You don't know who all these promoters are. You don't hear anything else about them, but you're just hearing about these shows being promoted. And I'm almost certain that some of the protocols were not observed. Some of the people who were supposed to be involved to give the kinds of approval were not there. I remember going to shows, and you had, like you just said, you had police ranks from different branches, different arms, walking around like ordinary civilian, and some of them enjoying themselves. And when you think it's a regular civilian enjoying themselves, it's a police officer. Now, don't we do random pulls when we have these shows, or we just have these shows? And you just spoke about cricket. Is this the kinds of things that we are going to have, especially when we're in the grass mound? Is this the kind of thing that we are going to have? I know it's not going to happen because there is going to be stricter security measures being put in place. But while we are going to establish, while we're doing that for cricket, we should do it for every activity that we have that would see these kinds of huge crowds coming in there. And again, I would want to urge that Skeng, or whatever is his name, not be allowed to come here to perform again, unless an apology is offered to this nation. Unless an apology is offered to this nation, those promoters, as a matter of fact, I am not sure what penalty would have been laid down for those promoters, because if any was, then we would not have seen the show that we had the next night and the next night. But again, when we are called to perform duties, we must perform our duties regardless of whether it's our friend or our family or our foe. We must perform our duties to the best of our abilities. In those shows, like you rightfully said, we had marijuana. Because when you look at the way, I'm sure my operator is about to pull up that clip to show us. But I'm sure we had the marijuana smoking, we had Mali, we had all the Guinness, and they're mixing it with something, and they're mixing it with something. And the other thing that we have to ensure that we don't have are glass bottles. I've been to shows, and I'm seeing people with champagne glasses, wear glasses. I'm seeing all kinds of bottles people having there. I'm seeing all kinds of things happening at these shows. Could we advise, as a man who is security conscious, could you give some advice to these promoters? Because I know you have traveled the world. You are into cricket. And I'm sure that there is something else that you would want to share with our viewers here, so that they can pass it on to our promoters if they're not watching this show.
Not the promoters per se, but the people who are responsible for security, because as I've said before, the promoters are going to do what they are allowed to do. That's the bottom line. The promoters are going to, if for example, the promoters have a show and they can get away with not having a single policeman, they are going to do that, right? They are going to do that. So it is for the people in the security services, the police in particular, to make sure that the protocols are implemented. First of all, are created and then implemented. Because one of the first things that they should do, and this is free advice to them. I'm not going to attempt to charge them, because the last time I gave advice and assisted them, I end up in court. Matters still going on in court where they say conspire to defraud. So I have to be careful how I giving them advice. This is free advice. One of the first things you have to do is to create a prohibited items list, so that the ransom duty, whether they are private security, whether they are police, they know, the promoters as well know. It says no firearms. Whether you're a licensed firearm holder or not, no firearm should be allowed into the venue. So they know that is prohibited from entering the venue. No, glass bottles are not to be, beverages are not to be served in glass bottles. You have to pour it into plastic cups. the champagne glass flutes, that's a no-no. So even if you have VIP areas, you have to have plastic flutes. These things have to be done. Knives, other sharp instruments, mace, and that type of thing. You have to tell them, you have to create this list to tell them that these items are prohibited and will not be allowed into the venue. You have to say that. You have to create the list. And once the list is created, then your people know exactly what, when they're checking at the gates, what can be allowed in, what cannot be allowed in. But I'm sure now that you have people checking at the gate, if any checks at all went on, because I doubt whether when you see the type of the scissors and the fact that guns were in there, perhaps no proper checks. Obviously, no proper checks were done. You saw the bottles being thrown. So these are things that have to be, the list has to be created, and these are things that have to be implemented. The people running the bars are told in no uncertain manner, you have to pour the beers, you have to pour the beverages into plastic containers. Even when you have rum and vodka, those things are not allowed to leave the bar in the glass bottles, because you know glass bottles can be used as weapons, as we start there Friday night, thrown in the air indiscriminately and injuring people. So those things are prohibited from entering venues like that, activity like that. They are prohibited. So I am saying to them that a first step, apart from vetting the performer, vetting the artist, is to make sure for all shows of that nature, a prohibited items list is created, and so that the ranks who are doing the checks are aware that those things are not allowed in the venue. Always say they're not allowed, and that is a big problem too, because I'm sure the nature of things now as they go on, the total breakdown, someone who is known, some advisor, somebody with links gonna come, and then they're gonna be allowed to go in. So you say no firearm is allowed, then the next thing you know, somebody who is well connected will come, and they end up here with a firearm. So these are the things, because you know now in Guyana is everybody and the dog and the cat get firearm, whether it's legal or illegal. So one can anticipate with a show like that, you're gonna get lots of firearms in the show, and therefore you have to take steps to avoid that. Luckily, and I say luckily, that given the mayhem that took place at the park Friday night, nobody didn't shoot nobody, and they didn't find that somebody with gunshot wound in the show. But remember, when those things are fired in the air, those bullets are not going to stay up there forever. They have to come down. So next thing you know, they land in someone's house, or they land somewhere. Those things are dangerous even when they come down. A little physics will tell you that once it goes up and it's coming out at a certain rate, so even though it is not pointed directly at the person, when it is coming back down, it is dangerous as well. It is dangerous. So it is real lawlessness that we saw there tonight. But I'm saying that is done. Event came, that happened. You have to use that experience now to plan how you are going to go forward to make sure that there's no recurrence.
Well, Mr. Slowe, I know we did talk a whole lot about botheration, and I'm hoping that we're not going to have another botheration in Guyana, and we're not going to have another stink and dirty in Guyana. But let's move to this one. I recognized yesterday, I think it was, the members of the Police Service Commission were sworn in. And I know there were some issues about some of the persons who were there and so on. Questions were being asked about them. But yet, we saw them being sworn in by the president. As a matter of fact, we hear them talk about the consultation and consultation and this consultation and consultation that we hear about all the time. But when we look at what is happening, we recognize that there is no meaningful consultation. The track record of the PPP shows us that all they want you to do is to turn out a meeting one time, consultation, and then they create some scenario to ensure that there is not another meeting, and then they do something else to call you to a meeting at short notice, and then they do what they have to do. And so we would have had this playing out here with the meeting of the president and the leader of the opposition. And then we saw the back and forth. And then all of a sudden, an invitation. But we have the Police Service Commission now that would have been sworn in. I know there are some issues with the commission that we had previously, where you were heading that commission. What's happening here?
Well, the Constitution says Article 210 is the article that deals with the composition of the Police Service Commission. As you rightly pointed out, I was the immediate past chairman, or I am the immediate past chairman of the Police Service Commission, which we contended unlawfully suspended by the president on the 16th of June in the year 2021. And I always ask the question, and it's rhetorical. The commission is suspended on the 16th of June when the life of the commission was scheduled to end and did end on the 8th of August, less than 2 months. And we know the reason. The matter is before the court, and therefore I'm not going to comment much on it. But, when we talk about consultation and meaningful consultation, the Caribbean Court of Justice, CCJ, has indicated quite clearly what meaningful consultation is. In the Zulfikar Mustafa case, they said what meaningful consultation should be. So I think it is for perhaps the legal people and for those who are who want to make sure that the Constitution is followed, is for them to challenge, let the court decide whether these appointments were constitutional or not. You will recall with the, as I said, the suspension of the Police Service Commission, the last Police Service Commission, unconstitutional. The appointment of the person to act as commissioner is challenged in court as being unconstitutional. Now we have a situation where the Police Service Commission was sworn in. It said, I read only this afternoon, that I think the PNCR coalition is gonna, they have indicated that they will also challenge. These things need to be challenged, because what we're having here now, the trend seems to say that, look, forget about the Constitution, we're gonna do whatever we want to do. That seems to be the trend. So these matters have to be challenged and let the court decide. Because let me say this, coming back to the Police Service Commission that I chaired, when it was suspended on the 16th of June 2021, we were advised by our attorney, very competent attorneys we have, Mr. Selwyn Peters, Mr. Dexter Todd, Mr. Dexter Smart. They're the ones who took up that case. And they advised us that because of the manner in which the suspension was done, it was unconstitutional, and therefore we should continue to do our work. So we continue to do our work. And on the 28th of June, the Chief Justice ruled in a case that was brought by Senior Superintendent Calvin Butas, challenging the promotion which was to be made in 2020. And the promotions were eventually made on the 28th, immediately after the court ruled, and throughout that challenge. On the 29th of June, the Attorney General said on NCN Issues in the News that once the president makes a decision, and I'm paraphrasing here, try to be as accurate as I can. Once the president makes a decision, no one, and he calls Paul Slowe, cannot decide that the decision is unlawful. You have to carry out the decision. And if you want, you can challenge it in court. So we moved to the court and we challenged the decision. The same gentleman is fighting tooth and nail to make sure that the matter is not heard in court. So when Justice Gino Prasad ruled in the favor of the commission in March of this year, I think it was March the 8th or the 9th, that the matter should continue, because he's arguing, that is, the Attorney General argued that because the life of the commission came to an end in August of 2021, the matter should not continue. This matter should just die a natural death because the commission wasn't there. Now, the argument was thrown out. The judge ruled that because of the public interest nature of this matter, it should continue. That was, he moved to court, the Attorney General moved to court, got an injunction to prevent the judge from moving forward, because he then filed an appeal at the full court. Last Wednesday, the full court ruled that the matter should continue. Yes. So we are waiting to see, because the point I want to make is that the people are saying, oh, this act is, the act is a constitutional act, it's a lawful act. But when you challenge the act, when you challenge the constitutionality and the lawfulness of the act, they are the same people who are trying to prevent the matter from being ventilated in a court of law. So it clearly shows that they know that they are wrong, but they just want to bully the way. They just want to bully the way. So this is what we have. These matters have to be challenged. I know, let me say this. I am not a politician. You are. I am a retired senior police officer. Because I'm a citizen of Guyana, I read and I follow the politics. And what is disappointing to me is that not so long ago, we had people call themselves guardians of democracy.
Oh, yes. Oh, yes.
And with all of these allegations of unconstitutional action, they are quiet. They are quiet. So I want to know if the Constitution is no longer worthy of being guarded by these and other people. People are quiet. People are quiet. And therefore, the question is asked, are we living in a dictatorship? Are we living in North Korea, wherever the government or the president decides that is it, regardless of what the Constitution may say? This is a very, very worrying trend. And I hope that this thing is challenged as soon as possible. Because my view, reading the Article 210 of the Constitution, which relates to the appointment of the Police Service Commission, you don't have to be a lawyer. Once you can read and comprehend, and I believe I can read and I comprehend, you will see that the article wasn't followed. And I say again, because prior to this case that I referenced, that's the Mustafa case, it was a little dubious as to what meaningful consultation was. But the Caribbean Court of Justice say exactly what meaningful consultation should be. When the president indicated that he was going to appoint the person as acting commissioner, he did say that he was going to invoke the doctrine of necessity. Now, reading the matter that is filed in that thing, I saw that the lawyers are attempting to shred that to pieces, say that there was no situation which warrants the invocation of the doctrine of necessity. I am waiting to hear, that is why I want this thing challenged, because I'm waiting to hear what excuse will be used if this is again another doctrine of necessity is being used here to appoint the Police Service Commission. I am waiting to hear what is the excuse, because I don't think they can say that they are concerned. Even though I listen to, I shouldn't say that, because when I listen to what the president said, basically he was saying that he consulted with the opposition leader on whatever date, I think it would have been the 13th, that he consulted. So they might very well say that that meeting, that first meeting, was a consultation. But let's wait and see, and let's wait and hope that these things are challenged as quickly as possible, so that we can know that we're not living in a dictatorship. We have a constitution which should be followed slavishly by all concerned.
But you know what? Before I bring my other guest in, while we're preparing to bring MP Ferguson in, Mr. Slowe, it's sometimes you wonder whether you're living in a bubble or not. Because like you rightfully said, a year and a half ago or 2 years ago, we had all these people who were talking about transparency and democracy, and they were guarding, and they wanted to see this, and they wanted to see a real government, and all the full works, and all the adjectives, the negative ones that you could think about, were attributed to the APNU AFC government. And now we have these people here who are installed. I know they don't like to hear us call them that, but they're installed, and everybody knows that. Now you have them here, And the same constitution that they were preaching about and all the democracy that they were talking about, it's out of the door right now. Out of the door. And it's clear for everyone to see. When we look at the manner with which the COVID cash grants were distributed, you're seeing clearly, not one Guyana, not two Guyana, it's 3 and 4 Guyanas. Now we had the sugar workers. They're being assisted all the time, and every other sector of worker they're left behind. We have seen cost of living soaring over the heads of ordinary public servants, and there is no cushion, no help being offered to them. But then, the same attorney general who got all this hype and so on, who got all these big fancy words that he can come to persuade you with, who keep talking about the elections and that they would have won the elections. And then here is it, we had a recount, and the recount unearthed a whole lot. This is the man who was saying we won the elections, but yet he is preventing all of the elections petitions from going through. And it leaves one to wonder, what is it that they have to hide? What is it that they don't want to come out? Because, I mean, when you looked at 49 boxes, and I can speak about that because I was one of the agents in the recount center at the recount. So I can talk about the boxes that came to my station where we had no other document in those boxes that came to us but ballots. Now, again, we have these people preventing justice from being meted out. If I can use those words. You don't want, when you're challenged, you don't want it to go forward. You're always talking about throwing it out because it has no merit, and throw it out. If it has no merit, allow it to go through. Allow it to go through, and let the world see that you're correct. But you don't want it to go through, and so you're filing all sorts of things. But I know that we're in for the long run, because persons are wiser now. Persons are bold, and persons are not prepared to allow this installed regime to run rough shadows over them. So we're going to end up at the CCJ with every one of these issues that are being challenged. Since you can go there, other persons can go there too. And I know that there are many, many attorneys out there who are ready and willing to work to advance the cause. But Mr. Slowe, I want to bring in to studio with us now MP Ferguson, because we're going to talk about some other things, and of course we would want to hear your bits on these other issues that we're going to raise, because like you just said, apart from being a police officer, you're a Guyanese, and when one Guyanese is affected or two Guyanese citizens are affected, then it affects all of us, because what happens in Belladrum could very well happen in BV. And if you note the places I'm calling, those are the places that are being targeted. What happens in BV could very well happen in Linden. And these are areas that are being targeted because the PPP, they would have recognized that these areas are not, you don't have strong support there for them. And so these areas are being stifled. Annette, are you there?
Hello, Coretta, are you hearing me?
Yes, we're hearing you.
A pleasant evening.
Welcome to Advancing the Cause, Annette. Annette, I'm here with this distinguished gentleman here, and I thought that we should sandwich him because he's a good man. And we've been talking about the Baderation concert, and but my show this evening, it talks about the two B's, Burnham and Baderation, Burnham's legacy and Baderation. We just saw last week where the Burnham Foundation had their, they applied 1 month in advance, or maybe longer than that, for the use of a part of the National Library to host their exhibition. After having approval over a month and change, they were told on the day of that exhibition that they could not, could we see Annette? We're not seeing Annette. They were told that they could not have that exhibition. Your take on that?
Okay, Coretta, even before I respond to the question posed, Let me say it is indeed an honor for me to share this platform with Mr. Paul Slowe,
Uh-huh.
former Assistant Commissioner of Police. And I must commend him also for the work that he has been doing every Wednesday, educating people on
Mhm,
their
mhm.
rights, and all the
Yep.
wrongs that are are happening in this nation. So, Mr. Slow, hats off to you, sir, and once again, continue to do what you are doing.
Thank
Um,
you very much. Thank you
you're, mo-
very much.
you're most welcome. Coretta, please forgive me for not, showing my true self. You know that I'm under the weather, so
All right.
so please, think. But look, last week it was very much unfortunate what would have transpired with the Burnham Foundation, them being denied accessibility to use the National Library to actually showcase the work and the achievement of Lenin Forbes Sampson Burnham as it relates to us gaining independence on the 26th of May 1966. That being said, as a Guyanese, I was really taken aback when I heard of the news last week. Why is it that everything in this country, whether where you wear, where you eat, how you sleep, how you drive, how you walk, has to be politics? I mean, the Burnham Foundation applied, they got the approval to utilize the library space there to showcase and to have, the public display of all of the works put in there by Forbes Burnham. And at the last moment, when the organizers show up there to have the booklets or the novels or whatever display, just to be told that they can no longer use the library. I mean, the National Library, I found it very, 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 very strange. But we know exactly what transpired. It had to be political directions, might have passed down to the administrator there at the National Library to say, well, hey, no, nothing for Forbes. Burnham will not be allowed. But uh, um, um, that did not taunt or daunt the organizers from doing what they had to do. They found another venue to have the displays done. And I know that Guyanese young people, school children,
Mhm,
they too
mhm,
were, exposed to some of the writings, some of the articles, the booklets that they had out on display, what Forbes Burnham would have done. And this they try, whatever they try, um, Coretta, they cannot erase the legacy of Forbes Burnham. Everything that Forbes Burnham was involved in, whether it's developing Guyana, bringing national service, the creation of NIS, all the infrastructure, independence, the Republican status of Guyana on the 23rd of February 1970. These things, they cannot take it away from him. Guyanese will remember. History is there to remind us who would have fought and who ensured that we got independence after the colonial rule on the 26th of May 1966. I'll pause there for now, madam.
All right. While you're saying that, Annette, I just want to shout out a couple of people that we are seeing on the program. We have Mark Doris and we have um, Colleen Skeet Price, and we have Paulette, and we have Bonnie Allison, and we have Joycelyn there. And there's another young man that we saw there, Dio Chan. Dio Chan, we're happy that you're watching the program. And we don't expect anything coming from these kinds of people, because rather than listening to the program and being educated, he wants to talk about who's ape and who's not ape and all kind of stupidness, who brainless and so on. And it must have been that there's something enjoyable about this program, that you who got brains you're taking time off to watch, but we see you, and that's okay. And we're happy when you watch here. Don't worry, we'll have Sherrod address you later on. But we're happy for all those persons, or Sulka, and all those persons who are watching this program, and they are enthused, and they're educated, and they're thanking us for having these kinds of forums. We have Karen, welcome. We see you. Good night. And we have Clement Beaton. Good night to you too. And Reggie Luke, good night to you. It's good to have you people here. We will continue to advance the cause, and we will continue to call spades spades. When you're wrong, we tell you that you're wrong. You can't talk about democracy and then you don't want to practice democracy. If you're in government now, you have to do what is right. And so we have Abel Ali and Abel Caesar and Mr. Rodney there and so on. Good night to all of you, and Jack Farrell and so on. Good night to all of you. It's good to have you here on the program. But we're going to continue. Mr. Slowe, I know that you have been there during that you might have been a little boy when we were having our independence, and I'm sure that you were all looking forward to having this grand moment. Could you tell us what was it like back then when the Union Jack was being lowered, and then we had the hoisting of the golden arrowhead, and of course we cannot take this away from Lyndon Forbes Sampson Burnham, because he was the person in the forefront. And I'm not sure why we always, as a people, we always want to throw away history. It is recorded there. And I don't know why they were thinking that shutting down the Burnham Foundation exhibition, that would have created panic. It would have created panic and there would have been no exhibition. But the fact is, Lyndon Forbes Sampson Burnham was the man behind us gaining our independence. You're a little bit on that.
You know, I was a small boy in the country at the time of independence. And I remember very well in the village of Bedford-Wacton, where I lived with my parents. I remember the joy of the older folks. I remember very well on the day itself. I have no recollection of what took place at the national park because I wasn't there. But I remember the following day, that's the 26th of May, they had what we call them tramping around the village. Music playing, and the older folks masquerade band, and people dancing and going around with the colors of the flag, which were those colors were being worn for the first time. And it was a joyous occasion. I remember that as if it were yesterday. Very joyous. Everybody celebrating independence. Well, of course, as a small boy, you're not sure what this whole thing means. But it was indeed a very, very joyous occasion. And I remember too, because you had, if you remember, Terry Nelson, who later came to live, the man from the Alagala man. He had a very popular song then. Oh, we welcome independence to Guyana. And all of us sang and knew that song. Oh, we welcome. Oh, we welcome. Oh, we welcome independence to Guyana. So all of us around the place, everybody jump and be merry. It was indeed a very, very, very joyous occasion for me as a small boy and the other small boys around. Now, in relation to the exhibition, I went and I saw the exhibition last Friday in the avenue there, and I was very impressed by the pictures and the books and the speeches and those things that were there. I was impressed by it. It took me back to years to see all of those ceremonial, people in ceremonial uniform, the Union Jack being lowered, the golden arrowhead being hoisted for the first time. Very nostalgic. So I managed to see the exhibition, and I was pleased to see that on social media, school children and other people going to see the exhibition there. So that is my recollection of what transpired in independence. I'm not going to go into whether over the 56 years, whether we have achieved all that we could have achieved. I say the political scientists and the other people to determine. But I have very fond memories of that day way back then.
Yes, and I'm seeing some of our viewers there. Mayville Schultz saying that you had steel band and you had maypole. And those are some of the cultures that have died. Very few persons know what maypole is. Our children now, they don't know 20 or 21-year-old, 20, 21, 2 years old, 19 years old. They don't know what maypole is. And rather than us keeping these kinds of culture alive, we want to do away with these things. And so Reggie
Again,
Luke from
Coretta,
New York,
Coretta,
good night to you.
rather than keeping those things alive, we have stink and dirty.
Yes,
Yes, yes.
yes, and it's so disgusting that while other persons in other Caribbean territories are looking up to, they would have looked up to LFS Barnum. And as a matter of fact, he was given the title the Caribbean Man. And we here, right here in Guyana, we don't want to acknowledge the contributions of that man. I mean, we are not doubting the fact, or we don't want to deny that Comrade Chetty Jagan, the late Chetty Jagan, he played a major role in that too, because it was himself and LFS Barnum who were part of the PPP party then, and they were pushing for this. And so I don't know why we want to downplay the contributions made by LFS Burnham. But I want to
But
thank the foundation for continuing to do what they have been doing. And we trust that the experience they had there last week, it would have made them even stronger, and they'll come better next year.
yeah, and Coretta, if I may, if you would allow me, I recall that during the independence celebration, in any given year, you had Guyanese, outstanding Guyanese would be bestowed, whether the Cassie Crown of Honor, the Order of Excellence, the AA, the Medal of Service, all of these things we would celebrate during hour of achievement, that is AA, during the whole independence celebration. And we know years went by where I don't know, because I don't know if it's these things were tacked to Burnham, that some politicians felt that, well, look, there wasn't no need for Guyanese to be bestowed national award. When we came into government in 2015, we had the return of these symbols, of these major events, where a lot of Guyanese in 2015, in 2016, 2017, I think up to 2020, had national awards bestowed upon them by then President David Granger. Now we're back to square one. We did not see the return of the national award when we celebrated independence last year, 2021. Now we're in 2022. These things are no longer there. The national songs, oh beautiful Guyana, the national anthem, all these things you used to hear during the course of the morning. So the youngster in school now, that little child at grade 1 level, he or she, I sure probably don't even know to sing "Oh Beautiful Guyana," because these things are no longer there since the return of the People's Progressive Party Civic in August of 2020. So we as parents, we as adults, we have to preach and teach these things in the home, in our homes, because they're not being taught in the schools. They're not being taught in the schools, but because
Yep.
it's no longer a part of the school curriculum where the People's Progressive Party Civic is concerned. And it's a travesty. It's a travesty to see how national symbols, how national songs, things of national importance are being treated under this PPPC
You
regime.
know, Annette, I need to remind that the PPP, they don't see being patriotic as being an important factor. What they know about, and we are seeing it clearly, is stink and dirty, botheration, and everything else. That's all they know. And as we're on that, I want to thank Ramesh Prasad, because he's saying there that all Burnham is known for his rigging elections. Well, boy, if that's what you know, then somebody has got to rearrange your mindset, because you really don't know anything about the man LFS Burnham. You need to go find out, Check the internet, you'll get some information. Don't worry, I'll ask Cheryl to give you some in a short while. But while we're moving on, because I notice our time is running out on us, can anybody say to me what has happened to the former media worker who was caught with cocaine strapped to her body? I know that I heard she had to go for evaluation. Mr. Slowe, could you say to us if we would have had any other person who had cocaine strapped to their bodies going for evaluation before sentencing? Can you remember?
I read the thing was I've been following it in the media. It was strange to me that a person who is caught with cocaine, large quantity of cocaine strapped to the body, as they say, the law people tell us strict liability. You have it there. There's no question as to whether you have possession or not. The person pleads guilty to this charge. Person pleads guilty. Remember, if a man is caught with a spliff, he goes there, he pleads guilty, he gets in dust.
Yes.
With a spliff. This is a person who's caught with, I think it was 17 pounds or something. I don't remember the exact amount. The person pleads guilty, and the magistrate decides that the person needs psychiatric evaluation. When the person appeared, I think this week or last week, the person now changed the plea to not guilty. That is the most recent thing. This place cannot be a real place. This place cannot be a real place. This person pleads guilty to this charge of I think it might be trafficking in cocaine.
Yes.
Guilty simply means the person is saying, yes, this is the meeting.
As a matter of fact, Mr. Slowe, the person said, I strapped it on. They didn't say anybody.
The magistrate orders psychiatric evaluation. And then there's rumor. You have the rumors that the person is connected to certain politician. That is the rumor that was circulating. Has political connection. So there it is. And these things tend to bring the whole system of the judicial system, law and order, into disrepute. I know, because when you see these things happen, and if you follow it closely, people are going to be making all kinds of comments, and you bring the whole system into disrepute. Because how it is, maybe there is a plausible explanation. Maybe there is. But this person is caught with cocaine. Person pleads guilty to this charge. Psychiatric evaluation is ordered. And when the person turns up at the next hearing, the plea is changed to not guilty. And no doubt you're going to go through a trial. So this cocaine was no longer strapped to this person. I am following it to see where this matter will go. I am interested because, as I said, when a dread is caught with a spliff or something like that, they are sentenced to long terms. If you look in the news, people caught with marijuana, whatever the quantity, a lot of marijuana, people caught with marijuana, jail and every fine. And this is a person who's caught cocaine strapped around the body, and this place cannot be a real place.
Roxanne Bacchus, I want to thank you for being here, for watching with us. And Roxanne is saying guilty means you are admitting to the offense.
Of course.
And so
well, let me say as a former law enforcement officer, not necessarily so, because they have what they call there are two types of guilty plea. And I like teaching, two types of guilty plea. You can say you're guilty, but when you offer an explanation, the explanation amounts to you saying, well, it's not you. So some people say that I'm guilty, but when they say, well, during the course of the explanation, in which case the magistrate is compelled by law to enter a not guilty plea and to proceed as if the person actually pleaded not guilty. But Roxanne, you're right. This is a case where the person pleaded guilty and actually admitted. The person pleads guilty and admitted, and this is the course of action that was taken. Psychiatric evaluation, and now it is not guilty. So let's see where that will go.
Pete Morian, thank you for watching us from New York City. We're happy that you're here with us. But, Mr. Slowe, I was wondering, though, and Annette, you could join too, whether this Baderation concert was a distraction or was there to create the distraction from this $17 million cocaine that was found in a container at the city wharf. I'm wondering because you hear about all these cocaine bursts, but you don't hear about people being charged and placed before the courts. You don't know where these things disappear to. We had so many drug bursts overseas, and if it was channeled back to people, but you don't hear anything about them anymore. Was it a
Well,
Yeah,
distraction?
well,
that's strange. Let me say this because um we had many years ago recognized that when you had these shows, they had leading up to the shows, you had lots of incidents of robberies and other crime, property crime. And it was clear that persons commit these crimes to get the necessary finances to go to these shows. It is also alleged that many times these things happen. Um, distraction is being created because again, if um, cocaine is being found with the frequency with which it's being found, don't ever believe that all is being intercepted. If
yeah,
all is being intercepted, the business can dry up. It will go out of business. The fact that it continues simply means that some are getting through. There's no doubt about that. You don't have to go to university, you don't have to get a degree. This thing is a business. And the fact that you continue to intercept people with things going to various places and so on, it means that some getting through. Some getting through. There even a suggestion that many of the interceptions are deliberate in that people tell you about some, and while you are concentrating on that, other things slip by. So all of these things have to be looked at in the context of what is going on in this land of ours. All of these things
yeah,
have to be
and
looked at in its
yes,
entirety.
yes, and correct, if I may, I want to join with endorsing what Mrs. Slowe rightfully said. You know, once people want to have used some of these illegal substance past, they use other things to distract. So perhaps, who knows,
Mm-hmm,
the
mm-hmm,
show
mm-hmm,
might have been,
mm-hmm.
a total distract to
Yeah,
pass
yeah.
whatever had to be passed. And we need to remind our listeners and viewers that when after the change in government in August 2020, I think it might have been the September or the October of that very year, tons of cocaine actually slipped through the shores of this country and went to Belgium. And you would remember the incident with the so-called scanner. The scanner
Yes.
suddenly went, in operation. So you had cocaine in Belgium found. You had cocaine found out in Jamaica. And
Mm-hmm,
and
mm-hmm. Yep,
it
yep.
continues every day. And I sure every day in this nation you got cocaine and illegal substances, escaping this land unrecorded, unreported.
Yes, and these the ones that we are seeing, the birds that we are seeing, those are the distractors. So when they distract you here, a bigger shipment is going. And Mr. Slow, you know that because you've been in the police force, you know that when they allow this to happen, sir, the bigger ones pass in. But again, I want to say to us that our judicial system must maintain what is law and order in this country. I remember hearing a young lady who was caught with cocaine on her way out to Barbados. And she said to the magistrate, I have two children, I'm a single parent, and I was doing this so that I could help my children to have a better life. But she was sentenced. She didn't go for any psychiatric treatment or any kind. As I'm noticing one of our viewers there saying, when you get caught with a certain amount of cocaine, you play mad in Guyana, and then you have to go for psychiatric evaluation. And I agree. I agree with the person. You plead guilty, but you're being told now by the magistrate that you're going to go for psychiatric treatment. And somebody else there, Mr. Dutton, is saying, well, it's the PPP business, and we don't doubt you, but I don't know where we are going, but we will continue to call these things out. But just before we go, the last one that I want us to touch on before we go. I notice cost of living is raging. I did mention it earlier. But I'm seeing only a certain grouping of people or certain groupings of people are being offered assistance. We saw the sugar workers getting, and then we're now seeing the fisher folks. I mean, I don't have a difficulty with the fisher folks receiving this kind of assistance, but what has happened to the teachers? What has happened to the nurses? What is happening to our policemen and women, our folks? And well, maybe they can say they get the 1 month salary, so they ain't got to get anything else. But what has happened to our regular public servants?
Look,
Times ain't hard for them.
look, you see, Coretta, Ghana is in serious trouble. And we do have there is a fundamental problem. From the time this regime came into government, it's about handout, cash grant. The money's not properly accounted for. There's no plan in the issuing out of money. You would recall when they came to the National Assembly in 2020, the first budget that had it, I think it was the 5 billion for the cash grant. Several questions were put to the ministers of government. What is the plan? How are we going to roll out this 25,000 per family? And we got nowhere with that. We saw how those monies were actually disbursed, in a haphazard manner. Police walking around with huge guns in communities, monies in bags, and all kinds of things. Look, as a Guyanese, I have absolutely no problem in government assisting its people financially. The problem that I have, Coretta, is the way in which this administration is going about paying out taxpayers' money. Now, you can't tell me it is only the fisher folks who are affected with the high cost of living. You can't tell me it's the sugar workers who are only affected, so they get a 250,000 last year. Then now the fisher folks getting 150,000. Then you say you're paying out some monies, 25,000 to hinterland families. What is happening to the other categories of workers? As you rightfully put, what happening to the teachers? Who helping to mold this nation? What happening to the nurses that would attend to medical care and all kind of thing to patients? What happening to the public servants who help every single day to ensure the wheels of government in this nation continues to turn? You understand? Aren't they taxpayers? Aren't they Guyanese? Why can't they benefit from these monies? So I believe, Coretta, and I can only call it as I see it, black people ain't make up the fisher folks. You understand me? Black people ain't make up the fisher folks. You look in the sugar industry, you have predominantly Indo more than Afro Guyanese. So something is fundamentally wrong. And we have to call it out for what it is. I believe the government needs to come clean. They need to ensure that they have a structured systems in place to ensure that every category of worker in this country benefits from the resources of this land.
Mr. Paul, Slowe will take your closing remarks before we wrap the show up.
Again, thanks for the opportunity to be here and to educate and to inform people what is going on. Annette referenced my program and speaking out, exposing corruption and incompetence every Wednesday at 11 o'clock. And I take the opportunity to identify certain issues and to bring certain matters to the public's attention, and to try to educate policemen in particular as to what is going on. During the show, I would normally say that in the past, I would have been given the opportunity to do presentations, official presentations at the training college and elsewhere. But that opportunity is no longer there. So I use that forum to make sure that I can continue to educate. And I will continue to speak out. I will continue to speak out because if I see things wrong, when I see wrong things, I will speak about it. And I said that if the truth is affecting persons, that is on them, that is not on me. So I'm glad for this opportunity, and I will continue to use every and any opportunity I get to speak out and to highlight certain issues. So thank you very much for this opportunity.
Thank you so much, Annette and Mr. Paul Slowe, for being here. I nearly call you Paul Williams. For
You did
being
earlier,
here.
though. You did earlier at the beginning of the show. So you're forgiven.
The Paul's confusing me, don't worry. But thanks for being here and for helping me to advance the cause. I'm seeing some of our viewers there. They are really, really upset about what is going on. And I see some of them talking about Black people and what Black people should know. They're all about going to shows, and they're not seeing the Jagdeo handing out monies to his supporters. But again, 150 one-off cash grant to 150,000 one-off cash grant to Fisher folks. And so I would want to say to our teachers and our nurses and our public servants out there, come on, look, put down the certificates and just pick up a cutlass, pick up a stain, pick up a hook, pick up something, go out there, and you can get the 150, you can get the 250, you can get whatever else. Because it seems now as if certificates don't matter. But I want to say to all of us, we have got to start advancing this cause. And this cause has nothing to do with who is Black, who's Indo, who's Amerindian, and who belong to whichever political party. When a wrong is committed, we should all stand up and speak about it. We shouldn't wait for when David Granger doing something and then we stand up and we bombard and we talk all kinds of things about David Granger. But now that we have Orphan Ali and Jagdeo and them doing all kinds of things to people here, very, very few people want to speak about it. But we will continue to advance the cause here and to let persons know when wrong things are being done to our people that we will not stay quiet. And I want to encourage you to tune in on Wednesdays at 11 o'clock for Speaking Out on Corruption. And then you'll tune in at 6:30 to listen to Advancing the Cause. Thank you for being with us here, our viewers. It was indeed a pleasure having you here with us. Over 700 persons we saw there tonight, and we're quite happy. And we'll continue to grow from strength to strength. But let me say to you, COVID is still up and about, and let me warn you, or let me caution you, to wear your mask at every occasion. Continue to sanitize, continue to stay away from those large crowds. And if you have to, take every precaution that is necessary. You see, this installed regime, they don't care about you. They're not interested in your well-being. And so you have to take care of you. Until then, do enjoy the rest of the evening. Stay safe, my friends. And we'll see you next week at 6:30 again for more on Advancing the Cause. Do have a good night. God bless you. Bye-bye.
Thank you for watching our program. See you right back here, same place, same time. And remember, hold the line of battle, comrades. Our victory is sure.